Palworld is not a good game. It is a great game, and nobody knows why it is the way it is, because on paper, Palworld seems to have had problems on top of problems that'll just make this project a nightmare to work with. With this huge resume of production and development issues, it wouldn't have been a massive surprise if this game had just flopped on release. For example, the devs had to hire a literal high schooler that worked at a convenience store just because he had an extensive knowledge on how guns worked. That's the level of absurdity that these guys went through. But despite the massive uphill battle in terms of development process, the studio was still able to miraculously launch Palworld to a resounding success, having over 8 million copies sold within just 5 days, proving that everyone was hungry for a good monster tamer game that Pokemon was disappointingly unable to provide for the last 10 years despite their monolithic reign over this genre. But unfortunately, not everybody was exactly a fan of Palworld coming out. Actually, a lot of people don't like this game for a variety of reasons. And whether or not their reasons are valid does not matter, because at the end of the day, nobody cares. People, or more importantly, the consumers, do not care about whether or not a game uses AI or how similar it looks to Pokemon, because at the end of the day, there's only one thing that really matters the most. Is the game fun? And according to the 2 million concurrent players playing the game right now, they would probably think that the game is extremely fun because it's a completely refreshing take on the monster tamer formula that people so desperately wanted for so many years now, especially from Pokemon. Game Freak and the Pokemon Company have been the king of this genre for decades now, and year after year they continue to underdeliver and disappoint with each and every release of a Pokemon game. And the release of Palworld reveals to the world that you can still make a fun monster catching game with a fraction of the manpower and infinitely less budget than the Pokemon Company. Game Freak has been coasting by on the Pokemon brand for a very long time, and it's one thing for a franchise to stagnate over the years, but it's another to actively become worse and worse with each iteration. But that's a topic for another day. The point is that Palworld's success has the potential to light a fire under Game Freak's ass to hopefully make them step up their games and actually start putting effort into them. But all of that doesn't matter to a certain demographic of people who are accusing Pocket Pair, the developers of Palworld, of plagiarism. Some of these freaks even went so far as to harass the developers themselves, some even sending death threats because their monster designs were similar to Pokemon's designs. It's insane the lengths that some of these people will go to try to take down something they don't agree with. They will latch onto any narrative they can in order to justify harassing the developers or telling people that they should feel bad for playing a game they don't like. And that leads me to the main topic of this video, the massive attempt of these people, mostly Pokemon fans, on the internet to try to cancel Palworld. Let's talk about the main allegations being thrown at these developers first, shall we? The allegations that 1. The developers used AI to generate the PAL designs, 2. The PAL designs themselves are plagiarized off of already existing Pokemon, and 3. This game glorifies animal abuse. Now, the accusation that they used AI is so far a complete speculation, and there has not been any hard evidence that Palworld has used AI anywhere during development. The only quote-unquote evidence that people have to go off of is that some of the developers at Pocket Pair expressed an interest in AI and that they've used it before in one of their previous games where the whole premise is to guess the origins of the AI image, which it clearly states in the name of the game itself. And not only that, but any game that's on Steam is currently required to disclose that they use AI generated content within it. So the fact that Palworld did not disclose it probably means that they did not use AI anywhere at all. This claim holds no grounds as of now and is currently a load of baloney. Now, the second and biggest argument that these people have against Palworld is that the PALs are either copy and pasted Pokemon models or plagiarized designs. And I do admit, some of them do look pretty similar. Some users on Twitter even found that the base models of some of these PALs were nearly the exact same with their Pokemon counterparts. And if this is true, then why hasn't Nintendo filed a lawsuit yet? They shut down the Palworld Pokemon mod in just 2 days, so why haven't they come after Palworld itself even though it's such a blatant copy? Well, it's most likely because Nintendo has no legal legs to stand on with this case. Nintendo themselves even acknowledged that Palworld exists, but as of this recording, a lawsuit has still not been filed, meaning that they know that they most likely cannot win a case should it ever go to court. So the legal route of trying to cancel this game didn't work, and now people are trying to go the artistic morality route, where they claim that Palworld has artistically copied the designs of Pokemon. And I do agree to an extent that some of these designs are pretty similar to the point where they just look like bootleg Pokemon. I'll give them that. But they're just that, bootleg Pokemon. They're still different enough to be able to tell which game each design came from. These people on Twitter are so desperate to scream and cry about how much Palworld is a derivative of Pokemon designs to the point where they'll just start grasping at straws no matter how far of reach it is. Like this one where they compare the Sheep Pal to Wooloo from Pokemon, one of the most generic sheep designs ever made. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that Nintendo owned the concept of a sheep. I guess they should sue Mother Nature for plagiarism too. And not only that, but these two designs aren't even the same. Like this one's bipedal and this one is quadrupedal, and the faces are completely different from each other. Another example these guys used was with this Toucan Pal that's compared to Xatu from Pokemon, and this is the biggest reach I have ever seen. Like these aren't even remotely the same. These creatures on Twitter are so desperately trying to paint Palworld in a bad light that they have to resort to pointing out the most basic ass concept, as if Nintendo owns them. Oh, Palworld has a green monkey? Well, Pokemon's already done that concept before, so I guess no one else is allowed to do it. Like, this is actual clown behavior. But you know what I find especially funny about this whole situation? It's that these people accusing Palworld of plagiarism won't keep that same energy when Pokemon does it to other games, because Pokemon isn't exactly original either. In fact, they too have made some derivative designs off of Dragon Quest monsters, so the fact that they act like Pokemon was completely original makes no sense. There was also this garbage article published by Eurogamer where the writer basically shits all over Palworld because it was too similar to other games. By that logic, Lies of P is a terrible game because it's just a shameless derivative of Bloodborne. Or Genshin Impact is terrible because it's too similar to Breath of the Wild. Like, this mindset of games having to be completely original is so stupid because the thing is, all art is derivative in some way, shape, or form. Nothing is ever truly original. The only reason why some things feel that way is because you've never seen it before. And Pokemon is no exception. They took heavy inspiration from other games as well, and that's okay because they put their own spin on it, like how Palworld did with their own game. Every piece of art is inspired by something that came before it, and that's why they're always going to resemble or imitate their inspiration. This gatekeeping attitude towards games that are similar to other games of the past is just utterly moronic, and this article is rightly criticized for the absolutely idiotic take. Now, the third reason that people are trying to cancel Palworld is for the stupidest and most hypocritical one, and it's because apparently Palworld is glorifying animal abuse. Yes, people do not like this game because the completely fictional and virtual animals are being abused in it. Let's just ignore the fact they can capture completely innocent humans as well and force them into slave labor, but no, it's only the animal cruelty that we have to think about. Humans? Well, who cares about them? And again, it's hilarious that these people will stand on soapboxes and rally against Palworld for its fictional animal abuse, but they won't keep that same energy with Pokemon, where the whole premise of the game is to capture wild animals from their natural habitat and force them to fight each other for our own amusement. For example, that same Twitter user who is most outspoken about Palworld plagiarizing Pokemon models is doing it because they think it's discussing how Palworld glorifies animal abuse. Yet when someone mentions Pokemon being the same, this person just goes, "Oh yeah, I think that's bad too," then moves on and forgets about it. So where is that same energy towards other games? It's this pearl clutching and blatant hypocrisy that makes these people just come off as bad faith social justice activists. And I know PETA is equally as obnoxious, but at least they don't discriminate who they go after. And it's not just the people on Twitter who are unhappy about Palworld's animal cruelty, but it's also of course the gaming journalists too. For example, this one article from PC Gamer where the biggest complaint for this writer is that you have to force the fake animals to work harder at your labor camp in order to get more resources. Oh, those poor virtual creatures. Never mind the actual gameplay problems that affect Palworld, like the bugs, the AI, or the connectivity. No, the biggest issue this guy has is having to be mean to the fictional animals. An even worse example of these so-called games journalists trying to cancel this game is with this atrocious article from Rock Paper Shotgun titled, "Palworld utterly misses the point of being a good Pokemon-like." See, this is how you know that this person doesn't actually play that many games, because if you have at least one functioning eyeball, you would be able to see that Palworld is not trying to be like Pokemon at all. This is a survival game with monster catching elements, more akin to Ark Survival Evolved. so the comparison to Pokemon makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. As for the actual article itself, the writer goes on a long tirade about how this game is so horrible because you gotta treat the pixelated monsters on the screen poorly, even though that's exactly what you do in every other monster game. But Palworld is different because it's so brazen about it, I guess. The writer also laments on how Palworld doesn't have any deep or philosophical reasons as to why you're doing the things you're doing, as if every game needs one, and how you always have to take but never give back to the world. Yeah, it's a video game. The player is the only thing that matters. This whole article just comes off as the writer getting on their high horse and condescendingly wagging their finger at the developers like they aren't allowed to make a game that's just dumb fun. The writer even ends her article by saying, quote, "I hope Palworld gets its just desserts and fades into obscurity." Wow, that comment sure didn't come off as bitter because the game is selling amazingly well despite the inherent lack of morality. These social justice activists are frankly just exhausting at this point. Everything always needs to have some sort of moral justification or ethical application to it. Nothing can ever be just for the fun of it to these people. So that's why I always have this rule of thumb. If you're doing something that makes these weirdos on the internet mad, then you're probably doing something right. With all that being said, at the end of the day, none of this discourse will ever even matter to the average gaming consumer. Only a very small minority of gamers even pay attention to issues like this because what really matters at the bottom line is the game itself, and if it can answer this one question, is the game fun? And yeah, the game is extremely fun, and the people have spoken with their wallets because this game has just recently reached over 18 million players. This was also true with the most recent Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, where despite Sega locking New Game Plus behind a paywall, it still sold extremely well in its first week. So we can sit here all day and cry about the problems outside the game, but no matter what, one thing remains constant: nobody cares. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.